House Judiciary Committee just announced their investigation into, well, one of the assaults we told you about here on this show. It has to do with J6er Ronald Maccabee. Many of you guys may recall we covered the alleged assault that took place during his time inside the DC Gulag. Now, Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan and Congressman Troy Nehls sent over this letter detailing what his difficulties regarding FOIA requests have been like since he's been trying to uncover what took place that day. And many of you might recall this event took place on September 5th of 2022. Maccabee was allegedly assaulted by guard Crystal Lancaster. Now, the interesting part in all of this is Lancaster is no longer allegedly employed by the jail. We really don't know why, of course. But the incident that took place was described to me by other J6ers who witnessed it. Ultimately, they said that Maccabee did nothing to provoke Lancaster from allegedly macing him. And well, they left him in a cell to kind of deal with the ramifications of that mace. And it was pretty brutal. Now, the Congressman Troy Nehls, who sent that letter over, joins us now to discuss. Congressman Troy Nehls, thank you for jumping on with us. I'm glad you're trying to get to the bottom of this because I know when I reached out to the jail, they didn't want to comment on any of this. But it looks like their guard, Crystal Lancaster, might have assaulted this inmate, Ronald Maccabee, and it was unprovoked. What are you learning about what took place that day?
Breanna, thank you for having me. And Miss Lancaster, too, she's also a lieutenant. So she's not just an officer. She's rose through the ranks to the rank of lieutenant. And she did have a body camera. But when I went to visit the D.C. jail, there's a director there. His name is Faust, last name Faust. And he was a former sheriff. And I'm a former sheriff, so I understand a little bit about law enforcement and use of force as it relates to your personnel. And so I thought we hit it off quite well. We spent about an hour and a half in the jail. And then I kept hearing some things about the way some of these J6ers have been treated or were being treated. And one case specifically as it relates to Mr. Colton, Ronald Colton, down getting his medication. Obviously, it was in the height of COVID, so everybody was required to wear a mask. And apparently when he was trying to take his medication at the cart, he lowered his mask, and she felt that he shouldn't do that. And then she ended up using this pepper foam or OC spray, the chemical that you would spray in people's face to get them to comply. It was unprovoked. And so we're just saying, hey, I would like to see the video. I want to see the video. And now I'm being stonewalled. The DOJ, the Department of Corrections here in D.C., nor the U.S. Marshal's Office, they don't want me to have access to this video because I don't think they're going to like what it shows. And so we're fighting hard to get access to that video through the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, and I think that's really important here. Now, I'm a big fan of FOIA requests. I send a ton of them. And sadly, under the Biden administration, a lot of these agencies don't respond to them. They try not to, at least. But I'm a little bit optimistic since you guys are reaching out. But then I look at the history of what you've tried to do, Congressman. You've tried to request that body cam footage through these FOIA requests, and they've rejected you. And ultimately, I mean, even after Maccabee signed a waiver, it looks like they still haven't given you that footage. So what's the current status of all of that?
Well, the letter that you referenced in the beginning here is a letter from Chairman Jordan and I to the DC DOC Director Faust, stating that we want access to this video. We have 4 things in there. We want access to the video. We want to know the whereabouts or any type of disciplinary record on Lieutenant Lancaster. So we want these things, and it states it very clearly in the letter. If they don't respond to us in the next week or so, then we may just have to go through the subpoena, and I think that's exactly what we'll do. And then we'll see how they feel about getting a subpoena to get this document. Now, the video. I was a sheriff for a long time. I was in law enforcement a long time. And when we had to release video coverage of an incident related to use of force, whether it was a traffic stop or whatever case may be, even if the video, I didn't like what it showed, we still released the video through the FOIA request. It was the right thing to do. I think the American people have a right to see them if it didn't compromise any safety concerns for the officer or anyone else. And so that's what we did. If you don't do things like that, Breanna, people are going to believe that there's a cover-up. And right now, I believe there's a cover-up going on here between the D.C. jail staff, Marilyn Bowser, the mayor of D.C., and the U.S. Marshal's office, and he's run under a guy named Davis. He runs the U.S. Marshal Service, and he seems to just be, they're pointing fingers now. I don't have it, they have it, they have it, I don't have it. They're just blaming each other, but we're going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, it looks like that, especially when you're signing, when you have, Maccabee signing waivers so that you could obtain the information that you're looking for, and they're still playing these games with you. It's kind of expected, though. This is what they all do, and this is why it's so difficult to get answers. And transparency is critical, like you detailed as your time as a sheriff. You would hand over those documents or the body cam footage because transparency is important when you're trying to win over the trust of the people. I did want to ask you though about Lancaster and her current status. It's from my understanding that she's no longer employed. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we were told. Anytime you get into a situation like this where you use that type of force, you get placed on administrative suspension, and that's common. I don't think that's unusual. But we don't know today whether she's still under some type of a suspension. She may have been terminated, but right now I do not know her whereabouts. We're trying to find that information out in the request, the letter that we sent to see where she's at. Now, if she's been terminated, obviously there could be a little bit of a problem there too, because if she was terminated, the video probably shows something, some type of a civil rights violation, and she certainly would have violated the department policy, if not maybe even committed a potential crime with this accusation of using that OC spray on Mr. Maccabee. But I had an opportunity to sit down with his wife, Sarah Maccabee, the other day in Dallas. There's a brand new documentary. It's called War on Truth. Nick Searcy did this thing. You got to see it. It's streaming online. It's War on Truth, and it talks about J6 and detainees and the injustices that have been done. But it's the greatest film. It is the greatest film on January 6th. It's called War on Truth, and you can get it streaming online. Well done by Nick Searcy.
Yeah, we're actually having them on the show later this week to discuss it because they cover all the key J6ers who have really been wronged by the government and all of this. So I think this is going to be a great film for the American people to see for sure. I wanted to talk about it too because you actually, like you mentioned, went into the DC jail and you visited a lot of these inmates. Now, I've stayed in contact with a lot of them, but during the time when you made the visit, I was getting messages from a lot of these inmates, and they were pretty much just saying that prior to your visit that there was paint that was put on the wall prior to your arrival because there was mold growing. They've also made claims regarding the food quality being awful. During your time as a sheriff, was that ever something that was allowed? And did you witness any of that when you went into the jail to do this check?
When I scheduled the appointment, Director Faust and others, even a representative from Marilyn Bowser's office, the mayor's office here in D.C., they met us at the front doors. And of course, when we walked into the facility, obviously they knew we were coming. You could smell the bleach. Obviously, they did a pretty good job, trying to clean the place up. And we had opportunities to walk into the tank, into that housing area where these J6 pre-trial detainees were, had opportunities to ask questions of them. And of course, we received all sorts of complaints. It was probably an hour and a half visit. And after I left, I think they were able to receive some services that they weren't receiving before my visit as it
Yep.
related to visitation with family members, even in-person visitation and communion services. So I thought the visit was productive because they did get some things, but those things, even under the height of COVID, should have never been denied to them. It should have never been denied. And I'm one of, we have other members that are doing, what we can to try to help and expose what's taking place in the DC jail and the treatment of J6ers. But there's just not a whole lot of attention right now being placed on this issue. And I think it needs attention. I'm doing what I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, you did a great job too, because you definitely did change that for them. They were very appreciative of your visit as well. And it's important for Americans to realize they were just in jail. They didn't have their trials yet. So they were still under the presumption of innocence, a lot of these men and women who were there. And so that's really important to remember. Congressman, before you go, I wanted to ask you a question. You just recently introduced legislation to stop the Biden administration from using taxpayer money to fund illegals getting IDs in our country, which is very, very important. I wanted to give you a second to kind of detail that for our audience because we're seeing this massive push to give ID cards to these illegals. Why do you think it's so important to step in now and shut that down before they try to do that on a federal level?
Well, why do they need IDs? I mean, we know that obviously there's an election coming up, the general election. And if you start handing out IDs that look like they're really formal, like government issued IDs, I think those IDs then could be taken to polling locations and others. Next thing you know, these illegals and some of these bad hombres are going to be voting. So this is just another strategy, I think, with this Biden administration to bring credibility to these individuals coming into our country. Well, let's hand them an ID that looks really, really official. Next thing you know, they're voting in some of the elections. They're using it to get a driver's license and everything else. So I don't support it. Our country is being ripped apart right now with a crisis on every corner. These illegals are entering our southern border, and we're treating them like they're actual citizens coming through the southern border. It's shameful, and this administration is going to pay for it. So is the legislation going to go anywhere? Probably not, because Chuck Schumer is garbage. He's not going to do anything to help secure the southern border. So I just want the American people to know that this administration puts America last, and I put America first.
Well, Congressman Nehls, we are very thankful for you. I know you've been a powerhouse over in Congress and you've been speaking out for the American people, and we greatly appreciate that. Congressman Troy Nehls, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. God bless you and your listeners.
God bless you. I've been bragging about how my skin has completely transformed after I started using this new skincare system. It's called Givaderm. And well, you guys, it is incredible. I use this 5-step system. It's called the Facial Edition, and it has done wonders for my skin. It's all natural, of course. None of those harmful chemicals are in this line at all. And it's really just been a game changer for me. I'm noticing the creases under my eyes have completely decreased. Noticing my skin looks clearer. It also feels tighter. It has been completely different since I started using this a couple of months back. So head over to givaderm.com right now. Take a look around. There's so many products that are incredible that you should try right now. The facial edition is on sale right now, so it's an incredible deal that you're going to get. Plus, they're going to allow you, just for listening to today's show, tack on an extra 10% in savings by using the promo code Breanna. That's BREANNA. Use that to secure 10% off on the sale price, of course. And then there's so many other things you should look into. I'm a big fan of their all natural deodorant. It's odorless, it doesn't leave any white residue, and it dries within a couple of seconds. It is incredible. It's something that both men and women should be looking into. And like I said, folks, it doesn't include any of those harmful chemicals. So head over right now to givaderm.com. Use promo code Breanna to save up to 10% off. And if you enjoyed that segment, make sure you hit that like button. And if you want to see the news before it becomes the news, you have to subscribe to our channel. And well, if you have a liberal friend that you're looking to save, make sure you share this content with them.